Hello everyone. Before the video begins, I have a quick announcement. As you may have noticed, this is not Briefcase. He has very kindly allowed me to narrate today's video. I have a new video over on my channel, The Final Wizard, all about 5 cases of real witches. It's a really cool and creepy video. So if you think that's something that you'll be into, I'll leave a link in the description and at the end for you to see. But with that said, today we are going to the mid-20th century, so sit back as we go to Canada. Evelyn Dick was born on October 13th, 1920, in Beamsville, Canada. Her parents, Donald and Alexandra McLean, had come to Canada from Scotland to take advantage of the better work opportunities available. Shortly after Evelyn's birth, her father found a position as a conductor on the Hamilton Street Railway, and the family moved from Beamsville to the nearby town of Hamilton, where they settled at 214 Roslyn Avenue. Evelyn's childhood was not a particularly happy one. Her parents often argued, and her father would often console himself by drinking. Her mother was obsessed with increasing the family's social standing, and was known to be temperamental and obtrusive. They were both very protective of their daughter. Evelyn was their only child, and they wanted the best for her. They did not like her to go and play with other children in the street, as they were keen that she would only mix with the children from the town's high society families. Evelyn's father, however, was a conductor on the railway, so financially was not in a position to send his daughter to the best schools, so she could befriend the types of children that her parents thought were best for their daughter. It came as a very big surprise to the neighbours when Evelyn was moved from state school to the prestigious Loretto Academy. Rumours started about how Evelyn's parents could afford the fees, when her father did not have a high-paying job. There was much local gossip about how the family lived, and they always had money, and seemed to live well beyond their means. A story started to circulate that Evelyn's father was stealing money from his employer, the Hamilton Street Railway. As Evelyn grew up, she became a very attractive young lady, and she was never short of male attention. Her mother thought that her daughter's looks were the key to Evelyn marrying into a wealthy family, so she could have a comfortable life in a nice house. Evelyn would go out to parties and moved in the right social circles, but she was never totally accepted into Hamilton's high society as she had hoped to be, and instead, Evelyn spent a lot of her time in the company of men much older than her. In 1941, Evelyn became pregnant, and in July 1942, she gave birth to a daughter, whom she called Heather. Neighbours started to talk about Evelyn giving birth out of wedlock, so in order to end the local gossip, she said that she was married to a military man who was stationed overseas. Heather was mainly looked after by Evelyn's mother, so Evelyn could continue her active social life. In 1944, she was pregnant again, and gave birth in September to a baby boy who she named Peter. Strangely, when she returned home from the hospital, the baby was not with her, and when questioned about this by concerned friends and neighbours, Evelyn said that she had made the difficult decision to give the baby up for adoption, as her circumstances would mean it would be difficult to raise 2 children. Evelyn's parents, who for many years had not got on very well, finally separated. Evelyn decided not to return to the family home where her father was still living, So along with her daughter Heather, she moved into an apartment with her mother. Evelyn, however, continued with her active social life and would often go out, leaving Heather to be looked after by her grandmother. In the summer of 1945, Evelyn met a man named John Dick. John was born in 1906, so was 15 years older than Evelyn. He had come to Canada with his parents in 1924 from Russia. John had only moved to Hamilton 2 years earlier in 1943 after finding work as a streetcar driver. They met when Evelyn and her daughter went to her father's work at the Hamilton Street Railway. John was kind to Heather and brought her and Evelyn gifts. She thought he was a nice, caring person. She told him that she was a widow, as her husband had been killed in World War II. John was completely infatuated with Evelyn, and a few weeks after they met, Evelyn announced to her family that she and John were to be married. She was excited about the matrimony, as for some reason she believed that he was rich and could offer her and her daughter a nice and comfortable life. Her parents, however, were not so pleased with their daughter's choice of husband and declined their invitation to the wedding, which took place on October 4th, 1945. After the wedding, they did not live together, as Evelyn told John that the apartment she lived in with her mother and daughter wasn't big enough to accommodate another person. This frustrated John, as he really wanted to have a normal family life. Eventually, the couple purchased a house on Carrick Avenue. Strangely, however, it was only Evelyn's name on the deeds and the mortgage, and it was her that paid the deposit. They did not live together for long, as Evelyn started to realize that the man she had married was not as wealthy as she had thought, and she doubted that he could provide her with the lifestyle she had wanted. She soon went back to her old ways, going out and meeting other men, and her relationship with her husband started to break down. John reluctantly made the decision to move out of the house and went to live with his cousin. Not wanting to give up on his marriage, John spoke to Evelyn's father about her behaviour. Donald, however, did not want to get involved. He had never been keen on John, and didn't think he was good enough for his daughter. John then told him that if he didn't help him get his wife back, he would inform the authorities about how he had been stealing money from his employers for years in order to finance his lavish spending. This infuriated Donald, who became very aggressive and threatened to kill his son-in-law. John took the threat seriously and reported it to the Hamilton police. John's marriage, however, had failed, and despite his best attempts, he had been unsuccessful in reconciling with his wife. Then on March 6, 1946, Evelyn's husband, John Dick, disappeared. On Saturday, March 16th, 1946, 5 children playing on the side of Hamilton's escarpment, or what the local calls the mountain, stumbled across what they thought was the body of a headless pig. But when they went closer, they discovered that what they had actually found was the torso of an adult male. There was no head, arms, or legs. It was just the torso. The police were called, and an investigation into the torso on the Hamilton escarpment began. John's cousin soon came forward and told the police that he had not seen John since March 6th. He told them how John's marriage to Evelyn had failed, and that his cousin had moved into his home, but without a word had just disappeared. The cousin was shown the remains and was able to make a positive identification, confirming that the torso was indeed the missing John Dick. On March 19th, 1946, Evelyn Dick was called in by police for questioning about the disappearance and murder of her husband, John Dick. When the investigators told her that the torso was part of her missing husband, she casually said, "Don't look at me. I had nothing to do with it." She claimed that a well-dressed Italian man came to her house asking for the whereabouts of John. She wrote in her statement that the man told her that her husband had been seeing the man's wife and that he was going to fix him. The detectives thought this sounded pretty unlikely and continued to investigate the case. They soon discovered that Evelyn had borrowed a large Packard car from a man named Bill Landig. When she returned the car, the seat covers were missing, and there were bloodstains on the front seats and blood-stained clothes in the back. Evelyn had written a note saying that the reason the car was in such a state was because her daughter had cut herself while travelling as a passenger in the vehicle. Police investigations, however, proved that the blood was the same type as John's. When confronted with this evidence, Evelyn told police that a mysterious man had called her and told her that John made a woman pregnant and that he was getting what was coming to him. The man then demanded that she meet him, so she drove to the meeting point where she met up with the man who had a large sack with him. He told her it contained parts of John. Evelyn's story went on to say that she drove this man to a place very near to where the torso was found, so he could dump it off. Again, police considered this to be extremely unlikely, and asked her if she was concerned that her husband had been killed. She replied that she was not happy, but it was a pretty mean trick to break up a home. The police had made a mistake by taking this statement without Evelyn's lawyer being present, and when he arrived, he reminded them that the statement was inadmissible in court. The next time she was interviewed, she changed her story again. This time, she said that her friend Bill Bohozuk and some of his associates had taken John into the mountain and killed him. When the detectives told Evelyn that this story differed from the statement they had obtained from Bill, she changed her story again. The police searched the family's home at Carrick Avenue and found a pipe with bullet holes in it and blood-stained shoes that had belonged to John. They also made a very gruesome discovery: a beige suitcase in the attic. The suitcase was filled with concrete, and in the concrete were the remains of a baby boy. It later emerged that this was the baby that Evelyn had given birth to in 1944 and apparently put up for adoption. The evidence against Evelyn was mounting, and the more evidence that was gathered, she always changed her story. The police decided to charge Evelyn Dick, Bill Bohozuk, and Evelyn's father, Donald McLean, with the murder of John Dick. It was decided that Evelyn should be tried separately, and her trial opened on October 7th, 1946. The public were fascinated by the case, and the newspaper headlines were all about the beautiful 25-year-old who was being tried for the murder of her husband. Even though there was no actual evidence which could conclusively prove that she was guilty of the crime, there was substantial evidence to show that she had participated in the criminal action and helped to plan it out. After a sensational trial, Evelyn was found guilty of the murder of her husband, John Dick, and sentenced to be hanged on January 7th, 1947. The trial of Bill Bohozuk and Evelyn's father, Donald McLean, was delayed for a long time due to legal disputes, and when it eventually took place, Evelyn refused to testify, which greatly damaged the prosecution's case. Bill was found not guilty, but her father Donald was found to be as an accessory after the fact and sentenced to 5 years in prison. Evelyn got herself a new lawyer and appealed her sentence. Her second trial opened on February 24th, 1947, surrounded by the same media interest. This time her lawyer successfully argued her case, and the original verdict was overturned because it was ruled that Evelyn's statement to the police were improperly admitted into evidence, and that the trial judge had not properly instructed the jury. She was, however, found guilty of the manslaughter of her son, Peter David White, and was sentenced to life in Kingston Penitentiary. 11 years later, Evelyn was granted parole and was released from prison on November 10th, 1958. What happened to her after that is uncertain. She was given a new identity and started a new life in 1985. Evelyn was granted a pardon under the royal prerogative of mercy. No one is certain of what happened to her after her release from prison. Some say she stayed in Canada, married, and had another daughter. What is certain, though, is that no one was ever convicted for the murder of John Dick. Hey everyone, and thank you so much for listening. I'd like to give a huge thank you to Briefcase for allowing me to narrate tonight's case. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to drop a like and leave a comment with your thoughts, and if you're new, subscribe, as there are new cases uploaded every week. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the video, I have a video that I would very much like you to see over on my own channel, The Final Wizard. It's all about witches, and they are some pretty interesting and even gruesome stories. I'm going to leave the link in the description and at the end, like I said. And there's also one more thing. We're hosting a giveaway to celebrate the video. For every 1,000 views, a new prize is going to be offered. Just make sure you head on over there, are subscribed and leave a comment, and a like. In doing that, you're eligible for the giveaway. So if you're interested, check it out. And if not, that's fine too. In any case, Briefcase will be back next week. Farewell until the next Briefcase.